Work Louder is back with another keyboard after their creator board. It's called the Nomad E, and that's what we'll look at today. It's so cool. The company, I don't know how many people actually know about Work Louder, but Work Louder is a company based out of Montreal, Canada. And the founders, Mike and Mattia, actually met each other during COVID. They met online and they did not know each other and they decided to start a hardware company. It's already so hard to start a company, let alone a hardware startup. But they decided to do this remotely while one is here in Montreal and the other is living somewhere in Europe, I think Italy. But they came out with the creator board in 2022, and this wasn't a Kickstarter. This was a small batch which they released. This was the main board. They had the nano pad and the top bar, the loop pad on top, which was essentially, it felt like a high quality DIY board. But now, over a number of years, they ended up doing a Kickstarter, which led to the Nomad E. This one was supposed to be delivered in Jan 2024 to me because I was one of the Kickstarter backers. I think they had around 800 Kickstarter backers, and it actually was a year late. It came to me in Jan 2025. I've been using it for a number of weeks now, and I want to talk about how I feel and what I think about this board. So let's dive into what comes inside the box and see what it feels like when you're getting this board for the first time. The packaging is very simple and very minimal. The packaging doesn't actually have any extra foam or any padding which you need because the box itself takes care of that. The previous board came with a lot of foam and it was cut in very interesting shapes. But this one, I actually prefer this packaging more because it's less waste. It's easy to come out. It's easy to get rid of. And that's what you see here. It's simple. There's not a lot of fluff inside the packaging. It's just the board, a cable, and some extra keycaps. And that's it. I think that's all I need because I care about the board and not so much about how it's packed as long as it is delivered to me in one piece. On first look, I saw that the keyboard has three customizable knobs. It has a screen. It has a standard staggered layout, unlike the creator board, which did not have a standard layout. So, and also has four customizable buttons. I think this is a great board for anyone who's trying to get into a more customizable board, which is available from a team like WorkLouder. I think they're a small, passionate team of engineers and designers who are actually building this for everyone who wants to dive into the high-end market of keyboard. But yeah, I think overall first impressions that the keyboard looks amazing. The keyboard looks beautiful. The initial feel of it actually felt good because the build feels solid. There is little to no flex on the board. I can't even when I press down on it, there isn't a lot of flex. There isn't any flex on the keys themselves. There was a lot of flex on the previous board, and you'd have to tighten it or you'd have to do something else to actually make sure that the previous board did not flex a lot. But this one is actually well built. It honestly feels like that this is something heavily inspired by the teenage engineering team. It looks like a teenage engineering product. If I don't know that this is Work Louder, I could easily confuse it with the teenage engineering products which are out there. As far as further the build goes, the top plate is actually plastic and the bottom is aluminum with a rubber pad stuck on it. So I think that's actually good. They also have a little stand which comes in behind it and is magnetic, so it also acts as a ruler. Overall, I rate this build a solid 8.5 out of 10. I think the quality looks good. The keycaps look amazing. The feel looks very good. There are clean lines, clean finishes. You wouldn't see any blemishes in the plastic. You wouldn't see any other scratches or any other issues in terms of clarity across the entire board. I got the atomic model, which was the clear version. There is an atomic purple. That's a little hint of purple in it. I really was confused between whether I should get the atomic purple or the atomic, but I decided to go with the atomic. They have a graphite, which is all black, and then there's another called chalk, which looks like a retro keyboard. If I would have gotten, I mean, I would want to get all four because they just look so cool. But again, we'll come back to why I only want this one. So the layout is a traditional QWERTY layout. It is staggered, and anyone who's using a traditional keyboard can easily jump onto this. They also come in different languages this time around, so you can get a French one, you can get a Spanish one, you can get a German one, and it also has the option to get the ISO or the ANSI connection. So that's great. I think they're trying to expand to a wider audience because they want more people to actually know about them and actually get their keyboards. I like how they're focusing on scale at this point because they came out with the first one and they came out with a tiny little batch for a Creative Micro, which was also picked up by Figma as a collab with them. But now I like how they're moving on to a mass market approach. So there isn't a lot of travel in the keys, but more than your typical Apple keyboard. The feel is nice. It is a linear key switch, and I don't feel a click at the end. But I think it's a soft key. There's not a lot of sound to it. You should be able to hear some of that here. But I like how the keys feel. For a typical user, you can actually just use this. But if you want to hot swap this out, you can do that too. That's also available in this port. You can also, as I mentioned, there are three knobs. You can customize them for screen brightness, or volume or anything else, zoom in or zoom out if you're using it with the layer combination. Let's actually talk about the software right now. So as far as the software goes, they have their own firmware and they have their own app. It's called Input. And I found it very painful to actually do what I wanted to do. I typically use a home row mod, which which adds the modifier keys on the home row, where long press on J would lead to a command, or long press on F would lead to a command. But for some reason, it wasn't actually working. It would end up registering the modifier key, but it would just quickly disable it after 200 to 300 milliseconds. I feel like it might just be a firmware issue or an app issue, which has not been able to write the modifier key correctly as I want, even though I did set it up correctly. I've reached out to their support. Most likely I will hear back from them and we'll be able to resolve this over software. But as of this moment, that customizability feature is not working for me. For any other user who wants to customize any layers on it or customize the screen on it, can easily do that. Talking about the screen actually has different widgets. So you can set a wallpaper, you can set a Pomodoro timer, you can set a typical date time to show you what's happening, or it could show you which layer you're on or which device you're connected to. It also has a little character which tells you how many words per minute you're actually typing. So that's cool. But I think they say that they are working on other widgets which they want to show off. They were talking about some widgets which could actually show me what's the activity usage, what's the performance, what's the resource allocation on my computer, and could show me some of that information right here. I don't know if you can customize your own widgets. They say that they want to do that. They show a lot of those on their site. They show a lot of UI mockups on their site, but I don't know if they'll actually come out with some of those. The firmware update also takes place through the same Input app. So it's just plug and play. I had to use their wire to actually, their cable to update the keyboard. I tried using the Apple USB-C cable and it for some reason did not detect the keyboard. I think one thing I forgot to mention was that the keyboard also has Bluetooth. So it can actually pair with multiple devices over Bluetooth and one wired device, of course. But yeah, it's a combination of how they're trying to move to a more consumer-friendly board off of that previous generation Creator board. They are supported on Mac or Windows. They have an option to switch between Mac mode or Windows mode, and that's something which you can switch in the Input app directly, so you don't have to worry about any of that. You can also do some setting changes on the board itself, but I haven't seen any of that. Maybe I missed it, but I did not see any way to switch between Mac mode and Windows mode on the screen, on the settings on the board. So let's talk about lighting, because every fancy keyboard needs to have a backlight. So this keyboard does have a backlight, but I was very disappointed by it. I could not see, I could barely see any light passing through the keys. There is little to no space between the keys. And even behind the keys, I actually couldn't see any light coming through. The maximum light bleed which I could see was around the screen. And maybe that's because I got the clear atomic version. But otherwise, I was sorely disappointed by the lack of light that was coming through behind the keys. I would love to see different keycaps which could allow more light to pass through them, and then I could see the characters more. They have different options. They have the rainbow option, they have a drop option, or they have the solid option. So you can pick whichever color you want, you can pick whichever style you want. They did not have any other customizability within the input app. I've seen other keyboards like the Keyboardio, which allows me to actually set patterns on different sides. They allow me to set different other layouts or different animations within the app, but they don't have that option as of right now. As far as any other controls, there aren't any other extra buttons besides the work and run button, which you see on the right. There is a FP button, which they've now allowed to customize to any other button. So you can move this around, make this the control key. But yeah, pretty simple in terms of what they have on the board. What's the typing experience? So honestly, my typing experience wasn't great initially, just because I feel like they messed up with the stagger. So if you notice on this keyboard, the stagger from the number key to the QWERTY row, it's actually a lot more than what the other rows are. And for some reason, just that slight tweak took me a long time to actually adjust to. And that caused my words per minute to drop heavily. That caused more error rates to happen. And that ends up leading to frustration. So I would end up switching back to my regular split keyboard or another keyboard which I like, and I wouldn't actually spend more time on it. So it's a mixed bag for me. I like the feel of it. I like the sound of it. I like that it's Bluetooth. I like that it allows me to connect via USB-C. But I also feel like that it might lead to more errors, even though it shouldn't, given it's a QWERTY staggered layout for most people. So for me, I've not been able to do touch typing on it that often, but I can do two-finger typing all day long. There hasn't been any connection issues that I've seen. I've not seen any Bluetooth issues. I did notice some people say that there are some BLE issues in their Discord channel, but I believe the latest firmware actually fixes those. So for me personally, I did not see any of those. You might have seen keyboards available on Amazon anywhere from $100 to $200. This one comes in at $350 as of right now. I think that's a sale price. The creator board was actually much more expensive. It was at $450. But this one, I think, is sitting at the medium to high end of the market. And you can easily find much cheaper boards, which are also extremely nice to use for a day-to-day. But if you know anything about the keyboard and the custom keyboard market, keyboards can go much higher. They can go up to $1,000 or even more. So I would say that this is still at a high price. But for the things that you're getting, the well-designed, the thoughtful design, and a small company which is trying to disrupt the market of keyboard makers like Logitech and others, I actually really like what they're doing. I do recommend that you buy this, even though this is not sponsored by them. I just like the company. I like what they do. I like their design. I like how they are sort of bootstrapped completely without any fundraising, and they've still been able to come up with a superior hardware product than a lot of other companies. So yeah, go check out Work Louder. And if you like this video, please subscribe and leave a comment for anything else that you want to see in down below.